So we're going to learn a second. So there's 4 methods that we're going to learn how to solve quadratics. The most important, in my opinion, is factoring. So factoring, and now we're going to solve by square roots. Then we're going to do completing the square, and then we're going to learn the quadratic formula. So the second way to solve quadratics is solving by square root. So I just want you to look at this problem. What's different about this problem than the ones that we looked at when we were factoring? Yeah, Henry? There's no x term, right? There's no term that has a number in front of an x. It's just an x squared term and a constant. The latter, Selena. So the number with the square root symbol and then the number under the square root. So the best method to solve this is not factoring. You could factor this, but we're not going to. I'm going to teach you a way simpler method when it's in this form, when there's only an x squared term and a constant term. It may not be equal to 0. You'll see that this problem is equal to 88. Doesn't matter. As long as there's no x term, we can solve using square roots. So here's what we're going to do. Our goal is just like an equation. We're going to try and get x by itself. So the first thing we would do to get x by itself would be to add 16 to both sides. So that would give us x squared equals 0 plus 16 would be 16. Right now, x is not by itself, it's being squared. So we got to do the inverse of squaring. Does anybody know what we can do to like get rid of a squared? Yeah, Madison. Square root. That's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to take the square root, and we have to do it to both sides, because whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other. So the square root of x squared is just x. What is the square root of 16? 4, and there is another answer, a different answer. Yeah, there we go. Good. Didon, what were you gonna say? I don't know if you heard her or not.
Yeah.
Yeah, -4. So all of these are gonna have 2 answers: the positive version, 4, and the negative version, -4. The reason why it's -4 is -4 times -4 gives us positive 16. So what that means is if I were to type in this original, it should cross the x-axis at 4 and -4, which hopefully this saved from last class. Oh, you know, why wouldn't it? X squared minus 16, oops, minus 16 crosses at -4, 0 and 4, 0. So that gives us our 2 solutions. And that's it. Easy enough, right? Technically, I would write your answers in those little like braces like that, the squiggles. So if you want to be extremely specific, that's how I would write your answer, okay? All right, let's try one more, and then I'll have you do one on your own. So x squared minus 100 equals 0. So again, we're trying to get x by itself. When you say length of the parabola, Selena, do you mean like where it crosses the y-axis? Because like technically, if I zoomed out, it would go on infinitely. Is that what you're talking about? Why? Okay, the minimum is in a different place because the minus 16 moves the minimum to cross the y-axis at -16. So if I change this to a -6, it would then cross the y-axis at -6. So that plus or minus number changes its location as far as where it crosses the y-axis. Okay. Lauren, these are you're just writing them down on a sheet of paper. They're not necessarily located anywhere. So if I add 100 to both sides, I get x squared equals 100. And then I want to take the square root. So x equals, what's the square root of 100? 10 and negative 10. 10 and negative 10. Ooh, that was a good one. All right, I want you to try this next one on your own. X squared plus 7 equals 88. X squared plus 7 equals 88. Not for this one. There'll be plenty of time for that. Okay, so you should have first subtracted 7 to get x squared equals 81. And then when we take the square root, x equals 9 and negative 9. 9 and negative 9. All right, let's look at one that's a little bit more difficult. X squared plus 25 equals 0. And I'm not being sarcastic when I say it's more difficult. I'm being for real. So I'm trying to get x by itself. So what do I need to do that? Minus 25. So I have x squared equals negative 25. What times itself equals negative 25? Nothing. Technically, there's a something. You just don't know the something. So you don't know how to do this problem. I hesitate to say no solution because there is a solution, but you won't learn it for about 2 years. So how you would label this solution is it is imaginary. I don't mean that like to be funny. When you take the square root of negative numbers, it is something called an imaginary number. It is a real thing. You'll learn about it in like algebra 2 pre-calc times. But I don't want you to say no solution because that would be a lie. That's like in like 1st and 2nd grade when they said you can't do 2 minus 5. And then like 3 years later, they're like, JK, here's some negative numbers. And now you can subtract and get negatives. Yes, Lane, imaginary numbers. It's exactly what it is. Yes. Yes. Technically, if you're just curious, the answers would be 5i and negative 5i. That's it. But ignore that if that's confusing, which it should be. So if there is a negative under the square root, it is always going to be imaginary. Now, I'm not saying that at some point you'll see it written as no solution because some people aren't as honest as Miss Simpkins. They just want to pretend like there's no answer. There is, but you don't know how to find it. So if you get to that point, you can just call it imaginary. Okay, I want you to do these last 2 problems, and I do want to come check them, and then we will move into our algebra nation book. So x squared minus 5 equals negative 4. And 6x squared equals 54. So let me know when you're done with those 2. And digital students, y'all go make sure you send me the answers to those 2 as well, please. It's not in OneNote, Nihal. It's just on a sheet of paper. So Selena, 6 is being multiplied by x squared. So you want to do the opposite, which would be divide it. So you got to divide by 6 before you try and take the square root.
You don't know? You pretty much know. Yeah.
Yeah, Tatum, but make sure you include the negative also. That's right, Didon, good job. Selena, same thing, make sure you include the negative number also. You just gave me a positive.
Miss Simpkins,
Yes.
do you want us to send you the answers when we're done?
I would like that, please. Thank you. This is 4 divided by 6, right? And then take the square root of that number. There you go. Yes, Bryce, that's good. Yeah, Nihal, that's right. Amalia, and on that one, make sure you include the negative. Okay, so number 5, you should have added 5. That's right, Tatum. X squared equals positive 1. And then if you take the square root, your X values would be 1 and negative 1, because the square root of 1 is just itself. Number 6, most of you figured it out. We didn't look at this yet, but I was just seeing if you could do it. So 6 is being multiplied by X squared. So we got to divide by 6 to get X squared equals 9. And then if you take the square root, X equals positive 3 and negative 3. Positive 3 and negative 3. Okay, we're gonna look at problems now in our algebra nation book. It should start on page 135. So I'll give you a moment to find that. We may need it again, so I wouldn't put it all the way away yet. Okay, so 2x squared minus 36 equals 0. So again, goal is get x by itself. So the first thing I would do is add 36. So that would give us 2x squared equals 36. Then x squared is being multiplied by 2, so we want to divide both sides by 2. So x squared equals 18. Okay, we want to take the square root. What's wrong with 18? It's not a perfect square. So you could put the decimal approximation, which is something like 4.3 or 4.2. I can't remember off the top of my head. I don't want you to do that. Unless the question is specific to a situation. Like if I asked for something in seconds, you wouldn't say I ran a 100 meter and square root of 128 seconds, you would use your calculator. You would type in 128 and find the square root. Does anybody not know how to do that? Everybody practice. Type in 128. That's just a random number I'm thinking of. Or no, use 18 actually. Type in 18, find the square root. So you type 18, you'd hit shift, and then the third button on the top row from the left that says x squared should take the square root. What is it? 4.24. Okay, I knew it was 4.2, 4.3, something like that. So that's not exact, but if I were to ask for like time or height or something like that, your decimal approximation could be the right answer. And there is a question on the homework where I say that specifically. If I don't say that, here's what you need to do. So we're going to take 18 and we're going to break it into two pieces. One piece is a perfect square. The other piece is whatever I have to multiply that perfect square by to get 18. And this is something we did at the beginning of the year. So here's me refreshing your memory. Yeah, Madison. 3 squared. So 3 squared is what? 9 times 2. Yes, 6 times 3 is also 18, but neither of those are perfect squares. 9 is a perfect square. So we want to use that when we're determining which two factors. So then we want to take the square root of those. The square root of 9 is 3. And we're going to leave 2 under that radical, under that square root. Now, just like before, there's a positive answer and a negative answer. So you could write this 2 different ways, and I'm going to show you the 2 different ways. Here's the simplest way, a plus and a minus. So mathematically, that means the positive answer and the negative answer. Or if you're more comfortable, you could write it as 3 square root of 2, negative 3 square root of 2. Both of those are the same exact thing. So I'll just bet that most of you are going to want to write the one on the right instead of the one on the left, but I don't care. As long as you're including both, the positive and the negative. Good so far? Okay, so let's try a few more that are perfect squares, and then we'll go back and practice a few that are not perfect. Oh, all right. All right. I need a new cord. Did I tell y'all about this cord? You know, like when your like iPhone cord like starts only working when it's like bent in a specific position. Does anybody else have that issue before? Okay, that's what I'm dealing with right now. Hold on. Digital students, I reshared. Is that good? Okay. Okay, so we want to add 121 to get x squared equals 121, and then we can take the square root. If you're not sure if it's a perfect square, which, I mean, hopefully you're sure about this one, but if you're not sure, go ahead and plug it in your calculator. If it gives you a whole number, it's a perfect square. If it does, so if I take the square root of 121, it is a perfect square. It would be 11 and negative 11. 11 and negative 11. Okay, so take a moment, go ahead and do the try it and the beat the test. And I want to come check both of those. So do the try it, and if you turn the page, there's one beat the test question. I want to check both of those, and then we'll practice a little bit more before we're done with this for today. That's a perfect square. Oh, that's so just 4 and a 4. Okay, beautiful. But it says, what is the smallest? So which one would that be? Yeah.
Do you need our book?
Not anymore.
Yes.
You still need your sheet of paper because we're going to do 2 more real quick, and then we'll move on. So what would the smallest one be? And what other solution? So think about that for this one also. So that's a solution. What else is a solution? Very good. So, but make sure you read. It says what's the smallest. Yeah. Yes.
We don't need our book anymore.
You do not. Okay. Okay, so if you already get X by itself here, what would you do? Okay, so that's that. Yes. Nice job, guys. Super impressed. That's right, Bryce, except the second one asked just for the smallest answer. Make sure you realize that. Same with you, Didon. Those are both right, but the second quote, the beat the test, I asked what the smallest answer was. That's right, Lauren, for the try it. Good job. All right, so for the try it, you should have subtracted 80 to get negative 5x squared equals negative 80, and then divided both sides by negative 5 to get x squared equals positive 16. And then when you took the square root, the answers were 4 and negative 4. Yeah, Tatum, that's right. Good. And then on the beat the test, what is the smallest solution? So we know that we're going to get 2. We know one's going to be negative and one's going to be positive. So you could actually knock this down to 50-50 without doing anything. What would it have to be? It would either have to be negative 9 or negative 3 without even trying, because both of those are going to be the smaller of the 2 solutions. So I know that it's neither of those. So let's go ahead and try it. So I'd first subtract 17. Get 2x squared equals 162. And then if you divide both sides by 2, x squared is equal to 81. So the square root of 81 is 9 and negative 9. So negative 9 was the smallest of the 2 answers. Good. Okay, so we're going to try 2 more. These are not perfect squares, so I want you to practice simplifying them, okay? I want you to practice simplifying them. So you're going to do, this will let me zoom in, 18 and 20. So I'll give you a second to do that, 18 and 20.